Welcome to the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, centered around family life and home education. How do you get homeschooling and housework done? How do you help children who are struggling? How do you teach a rebellious child? We have answers. You pour into your family daily, and we are here to help you. Brought to you by the Old Schoolhouse, your trusted partner for over 20 years.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, where you can find encouragement, tips, and sometimes some real life advice from homeschooling parents. I'm your host, Christine, and I am a homeschooling mom of two boys here in Ontario, Canada, and I have the privilege of working for the Old Schoolhouse. Today's episode was sponsored by Cedar Brook Camps. These camps are outdoor Christian skill building camps for boys and girls located throughout the USA and Canada. Find out more at cedarbrookcamps.com and find a camp near you. So today we're going to be discussing how do you homeschool while working? And this is a popular question among especially new homeschoolers where they found out that they just need that extra income to help with the finances, and unfortunately bills keep coming in. So many of us moms especially are looking for those stay-at-home jobs where we can still homeschool and work, but with that obviously comes some challenges, and so let's talk about that. Obviously, homeschooling while working can feel overwhelming. And, whether it's full time, part time, or, you're just doing one of those freelancing jobs, the demands of your job and homeschooling can seem like too much to balance sometimes. And as a person who does both, I can tell you these challenges are real. And so let's talk about some of these challenges. So I think the number one challenge is, managing your time. So how do you find the time to get everything done? And I know I was in church one Sunday and one of the members had come up to me and just was impressed that, wow, you're teaching your kids at home, you're working, you take part in the church as well in ministry, and how on earth do you get everything done? And I'll tell you, some days I wish we had an extra, maybe 2, 3 hours, because the days feel so short and the list of things to do it seems to get longer and longer, especially as my kids grow and they get more involved with their lives and all of that stuff. So when I first started working, it was definitely a learning moment where, I had to find the right schedule. And so what would work for me is not necessarily what would work for you, but you have to kind of play around with it and, move things around, decide your priorities. And I like to have a checklist. I like to have, I'm an old fashioned person and I need to have a pen and paper nearby. And so what I usually do for myself is at the beginning of the day, or maybe, if my brain's going a mile a minute late at night and I need to get myself to sleep, I'll take my pen and paper and I'll write down, okay, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow's Monday. These are the things that I need to get done. And I'm going to put a star next to the ones that need to get done first. And then I check off as I go. And then there's always going to be stuff that, you know what? It doesn't have to get done today. It can be pushed off for another day. And I think the key is to not feel guilty about those few things that you push to the next day, as long as, they're not going to get forgotten. So don't feel guilty about that, because you're not a machine, even though sometimes it feels like we function like one. But that's not healthy. So, and this is good to be mindful of this, of our time, because one, the job can't take 24 hours out of our day, because our children need us, our family needs us, our housework also needs us. And Proverbs 31:27 is a great reminder of the virtuous woman. And, it says, she watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Now, I can tell you for sure, homeschooling moms are not idle. We're probably far from that, way far over on the other end. But it's still a good reminder that we are doing a good thing by looking over the affairs of our household. But we have to remind ourselves that we need to be diligent and intentional with our planning so that we don't go too far to the other end. So, challenge number 2 is our energy levels. So, obviously, balancing work and homeschooling can definitely lead to burnout. And no one can function if you burn out. And I've been there. And so you may find yourself exhausted and unable to give your best to either your work or homeschooling. And that's not benefiting anyone. So I think in the last year or so, I've really had to be mindful of this because I was noticing extreme exhaustion in myself. And so I wasn't very patient. And you need patience, obviously, for homeschooling and, dealing with the kids day to day. And then I was just tired and wasn't able to think clearly. And so work became tedious when I actually love my job and I love what I do. Then it was feeling like a negative thing. And so I had to be mindful of, getting to bed on time. I needed to renew my mind. So remembering that I need to spend time with God. Uh, I need to make sure I ate properly because nobody likes a hangry mom. And one of the scripture verses that keeps me going is Isaiah 40, verse 31. And it says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So, I mentioned spending time with God and, finding that strength in God can help us get through those busy times because busy times do come, but it's where we lean on, or I should say, it's who we lean on during these times is where we're going to find our strength. And God is the one who can handle it, who can handle our weariness, who can handle our frustrations. And it helps keep us focused as to why we're doing what we're doing. So the reason why we're homeschooling is because we want to raise them in the way that they should go. Proverbs 22, verse 6. And why we're working is so that we can afford to do that. And so we are honoring God by doing this, but we also need his help. So definitely, if you're finding yourself drained, take some time, take some moments to pray, to worship, and just to reach out and ask him for the strength because he's faithful enough to give us that strength and more and the peace for our hearts and our minds to keep going. And one of the other tricky challenges was dividing attention. And some days it's hard to focus on work tasks or making sure your kids are finishing their work. And sometimes it's both happening at the same time. You get an email and something needs to get done, but at the same time, two of my boys have come and said, I need help with my schoolwork. And then you feel like you're being split three different ways. And you have to decide, what do you do? And so this can be tricky because sometimes a work task can't wait. And so I've had to ask my boys, okay, give me half an hour. I need to finish this one thing, but I have to be intentional and follow through with what I said because let me tell you, if my kids sense that I'm going to be busy for a long time, they're going to disappear and not follow through with their work, which is annoying. And then I get frustrated. But see, if I don't follow through and do what I say, then it's my fault. And let me tell you, sometimes my kids like to remind me that it's my fault. So definitely keep that in mind, and maybe it's the other way around, that they both come at you, work and the kids come at you. Take a look at the assignment. If it can wait half an hour, close the laptop, put down the phone, and help your children get through their lesson. Because for the most part, it was just a single word, or it was like one question that probably would only take 5 minutes of your time. And they need to know that they're more important than the work that you do. So talked about a couple of solutions that I've used, but let's talk about some general solutions that you could use for balancing work and homeschool, especially if you're just getting started and you just started a new job and you're trying this whole work and homeschool schedule. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a flexible schedule. So you're going to design a schedule that accommodates both work and homeschooling, because it helps to have it down on paper so you can see it and you can actually look at it and see if it's actually going to be functional. You're going to block out specific times for work. You're going to block out times for school. And don't forget, you need to schedule some family time, because let me tell you, it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole when it comes to work, because there's always stuff to do at work. And like I said, if you're just getting started, you may need to adjust the schedule a couple of times, because not only do you need to get used to balancing work and homeschooling, your kids are going to have to get used to it too. So you may find that they function better at a certain time. And so maybe you do school in the morning as opposed to the afternoon, or vice versa. And so I know for me, it works better for me to do school in the morning right after breakfast and get that done. And then my kids can work on independent stuff in the afternoon while mom works. And that has been the schedule that works best for us. And then we do our family time, obviously, after dinner. And the key thing with that was being flexible and not being afraid to change it, because nothing is ever set in stone when it comes to homeschooling. And we need to remember that there is a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens. That's Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. So just keeping in mind that understanding there's a time for work, a time for learning, and a time for rest. And yes, please don't forget to schedule rest time for you, because you need to refresh and re-energize yourself. And this is going to help you find that balance. And another solution is prioritizing tasks. And that's what I mentioned earlier. Make sure you're getting the things that need to get done. So obviously their school needs to get done. And, prioritize the list of things that you have to do. I also include on my little notepad here some of the things that I have to do outside of work and homeschool, like schedule doctor's appointments and extracurricular activities and paying the bills. I gotta schedule, because sometimes I forget, and then weeks go by and I'm like, oh no, I forgot to do XYZ. And for the things that I don't get done for the day, I make sure and I start writing my list for the next day so that they don't get dropped. And I love crossing things out. So once I get to cross that out, it's so helpful. It gives my brain a break. One less thing to do. And if you find that your list is ridiculously long, and this is why writing things down is helpful, because sometimes we can easily take on a whole lot more without even realizing it. And so when we're starting to write things down and you're like going on to page 2 of your notepad, that means that's too much for you to do. And so start looking at your list of things and your tasks, and either someone else can take care of some of those things, or have your kids help with those things, or you need to get rid of them completely and you need to make some adjustments. Because if we're not even able to keep up with the things that are important, we're going to run into burnout for sure. And it's going to be unattainable almost, and you're going to find yourself defeated. And that's not what we want. And that leads me to my other solution. Speaking of getting the kids to help out, is actually involving your kids. So, if you've got older kids that could help with some of the teaching or helping them be more independent in their studies, obviously we don't want to remove the parent like altogether from the teaching aspect of it, because the whole point of homeschooling is that you do this together as a family. So that's not what I'm saying at all. But definitely our children could take up some more responsibilities, especially our older ones. And definitely they can always help with household chores. And you know what? If you've got little ones, the older they get, they'll be able to help with more and more. So have some faith to keep on going. And by doing this, this is going to help free up a little bit more of your time, and it's going to teach them valuable life skills. So exactly what I said for me was, I have had my older one do some of the reading with my younger one, and that has freed up a lot of my time, especially when reading time was more like snuggle time, and then it took a lot longer than it should, which I love snuggle time, but and I do try to still do that, schedule that time in, because it's a special bonding thing that I have with my younger son. But for sure, there are some days where I need to focus on a task. And so, besides, it's building the bond between brothers as well. So there's that opportunity there for that. And it's helped tremendously having my older son help with some of those tasks. And so, as I mentioned, Proverbs 22, verse 6, these are all skills that we're raising them to be helpful people, responsible people. So, we're starting our kids off, we're raising them on the way they should go. So, when they are old, they will not depart from it. And I'm going to pause here to remind us that today's episode was sponsored by Cedarbrook Camps. These camps are outdoor Christian skill building camps for boys and girls located throughout the USA and Canada. Find out more at cedarbrookcamps.com and find a camp near you. So, my last solution that I had for finding that balance between homeschooling and work is seeking support. So, sometimes you need to look outside of your house and get some friends and family to come over. You've got a big project coming up, and you can be flexible with your homeschool. Maybe there's a field trip to Nana's house, or you organize a trip with your co-op if they can take your kids for you on a field trip, or maybe just gathering together with a homeschool group, and then you can have your laptop on the side. There are options out here, and you don't have to do it alone. So I know we obviously do the field trips with Nana at Nana's house, and that has been a tremendous help for me, especially when I need quiet in the house. I've got to record a podcast episode that and I need the kids out of the house, and that has been definitely helpful. And even you're going to go through difficult situations and different seasons throughout your homeschooling journey, and it's vital to know where you can go for support. And like I said, whether it's friends or family or your homeschooling community, just know that we're here to help one another and support one another, especially when the load feels heavy. And that's scriptural right there. It's Galatians 6 verse 2. It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. So balancing work and homeschooling is obviously not an easy feat, but it's not impossible as long as you have the right mindset and the right strategies. So Again, remember, you're not alone. We all go through this, especially for those of us who are balancing both work and homeschooling. We know that there are challenges, but there are solutions. And hopefully, some of the ones that I've mentioned are helpful to you. Many of us are walking in the same path, like I said, and we just need to remember that with God's help, we can thrive, even with balancing work and homeschool. So, one of my most favorite things to say is one day at a time. I don't know if you know that song, but look it up. It's a it's something that I lean on very often. It's one day at a time, sweet Jesus. And that reminds me to pace myself. I don't have to get it all done in one single bite. I lean on God for strength, and that goes for you too. Lean on Him for strength. Remember that you're doing a great job even on the tough days because you know you're doing the best you can for your family. And Philippians 4, verse 13, it's a popular verse. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So trust in that. Trust that God will give you the strength to meet the challenges of today and those that are going to come your way in the future. So I just want to leave those thoughts with you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. And if you found this discussion helpful, share it with homeschooling parents who might benefit from this discussion. And remember, you got this, Mama. And if you'd like more on this topic, be sure to see the show notes at thehomeschoolshow.com, and you'll find links to other resources like the old Schoolhouse magazine articles, Schoolhouse teachers resources, and more. And don't forget to subscribe on whatever channel you are listening to so you don't miss an episode of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. A new episode comes out every Monday. And I'll give you a little snapshot of what's coming up next. We've got Little Rebels Need Nurture and Consistency. Then we have Why Are They Always Hungry? Meal Planning Help. And then we have How to Help a Struggling Reader. So mark those down. Those are coming up next on the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. And don't forget that you can access the current issue of the Old Schoolhouse magazine wherever you are by downloading the app from homeschoolapp.com. Again, want to say thanks for listening. Pray God's blessings on you and your family, and hope you join us again for another episode of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show.